Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about some of my absolute favorite performances in the horror genre. So I have been wanting to do this video for the last few months, but I just never got a chance to do it. But I'm glad that I'm finally getting around to it, especially since we do have award season fast approaching, and some of the ones on here actually did win awards and other ones definitely did get snubbed, as do most of them in the horror genre. But I wanted to just talk about the ones that I think are some of the best in here. There are going to be some spoilers in here for the different movies because I think that to talk about the different horror performances that we have in here, some of them are very important to bring up the storylines of the movies as well. And you'll also notice that I am in a different studio right now. So it was always my intention to have my studio be in front of my horror physical media collection, and for the last few years I have not had my movies really be accessible and displayed properly. I decided that in 2026 I was going to change that, so I do finally have them in order. It's not completely the way I want it to be, but it is the best that I can do right now. Let me know down in the comments if you would at any point like to see a video or videos showing my different physical media collection at all. I really like watching those types of videos, so let me know if you would like to see that from me as well. But starting off my list, we have Toni Collette in Hereditary. Hereditary is about a family that loses their matriarch very early in the film, and we kind of find out throughout the course of the film that the matriarch of the family had been involved in some pretty terrible stuff. And Toni Collette is the main character, Annie, in this one. She is the daughter of the matriarch that had passed away, and about maybe the halfway point or a little bit before that, she ends up losing her daughter in this film, and in a very horrible, horrific way. And that is really where her performance comes into play. I think that any parent would be absolutely horrified to lose their child, especially in the terrible way that she loses Charlie in this one. And I think that her performance is so raw and so believable. The specific part is when she is basically just learning about the death of her daughter, and she can't even stand up. She is just clinging to the ground, basically, with her husband by her side, and she's just saying that she wants to die. That is 100% how I would feel if I lost my son, and I think that really all parents would feel the same way. And another great performance from her in this movie would be the I am your mother speech that she does to her older child as well. But this is just one of the best performances I've ever seen in a horror film. She is not afraid to let it be raw and emotional, and she really should have won more for that performance. But again, you know, the horror genre is just not respected enough, and we just don't get those accolades, unfortunately. However, I do want to talk about some where we did get, some awards for the performances, and the first one of these would be from Sir Anthony Hopkins from Silence of the Lambs. So Silence of the Lambs focuses primarily on Clarice Starling, who is new to the FBI, and she is still kind of in her training and stuff, but she gets an opportunity to work on a very important case following the Buffalo Bill murders. And in doing that, she has to talk with Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who has been incarcerated for some time due to the fact that he is a cannibal and serial killer. So Anthony Hopkins does just an unbelievable performance in this movie. I think Clarice is great. Jodie Foster does an awesome job as well, but it's Anthony's performance that really stands out for me. I mean, I really like villain performances in movies for the most part, so all of those, if they're done well, they just stand out to me a lot more anyway. But he is just so calm and intellectual when it comes to his discussions with Clarice specifically. I think that he's got just so much charisma. He just kind of melts into this role. It's just absolutely the perfect one for him. I love seeing especially intellectual villains. I think those are the best ones for me. I love those ones. But we also get to see him be completely psychotic when it comes to him trying to escape that like cage thing that they have him in when he's being relocated, which I like seeing that as well. But I am glad that this is one movie that we had actually gotten, some good accolades for. But I do have another one that I want to talk about that is similar to that, and that would be Kathy Bates in Misery. So Misery is about a writer who does get into a car accident, and he ends up getting saved by his number one fan, who happened to be a nurse, so she's going to try to nurse him back to health. However, she finds a manuscript in his belongings, and she does not like what she finds due to the fact that he was going to really alter the story in a way that she didn't like. So she decides that she's going to kidnap him and try to get him to rewrite the story to fit her own needs. And Annie Wilkes, I think, is one of the best female villains of all time. I think that Kathy Bates brought something to this role that was really awesome. She is honestly equal parts sugary sweet and completely deranged, and I love that. I think that the hobbling scene is one that showcases her being completely deranged, and it's just so iconic and definitely one that will stick with us after we watch Misery for sure. And now the next one I want to talk about is Donald Pleasence in Halloween. And this is really not just the first Halloween, it is his performance overall in this character throughout the course of the franchise that he gets to be a part of. And in Halloween, we do focus on Michael Myers, who killed his sister when he was very young, and now he is an adult that gets to escape from his psychiatric facility, and he decides to go back to his hometown and prey on some different babysitters. And Donald Pleasence obviously plays Dr. Samuel Loomis, who is Michael's doctor. And this performance, they wanted someone in the movie that was going to bring a little bit of star power, because most of the cast was actually just, young, up and coming actors and actresses, but they really wanted someone who was a little more seasoned, like Donald, to be in this role. So he got the chance to play this part, and I think that it is just such an iconic role. It's honestly my favorite part of most of these older Halloween movies is just seeing him in this role. He is the character that I really want to follow. And I think that his performance is very calm and subtle in parts of it, for sure. I just really like how intellectual he is as well. I think that the best parts of his performances are usually his speeches that come to Michael and his evil. And we do get multiple of those throughout the course of the films that he's in, although I definitely think that the first one is the most iconic out of them. I am always thinking about, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, and purely and simply evil. I just definitely think about all those parts from that speech in that film. But I really like when he gets a little bit more wild throughout the course of the films. He's definitely getting tired of continuing to go up against Michael throughout the course of these films. He obviously just wants to be able to take him down so he doesn't have to worry anymore, especially with him getting older and everything. So he is getting a little more desperate throughout the course of the films, and I like that aspect of his character as well. I also really like that there are some comedic moments that they throw in there, and I don't see people talk about that as often, but specifically when he is trying to get Lonnie to not go up to the Myers house in the first film, and he tries to scare him to do so, and he does so successfully, and then he just has the funniest smile on his face, and he just, looks like he's very proud of himself in that moment. And then also, I think that in Halloween 4, when he is with the priest or preacher, whoever, and he's just singing in the truck, and Sam is kind of just looking at him like he's kind of crazy. That's a really good, funny performance from him as well. The next one that I want to talk about is Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween H2O 20 years later. So in H2O, we do follow Laurie Strode, who has changed her name and faked her death and moved all the way to California, where she is the head of a prep school where she teaches her own son as well as multiple teenagers. And she is definitely still dealing with all of the trauma that she had from 20 years ago when her brother came after her and all of her friends. And she is not dealing with it in the most healthy of ways. You know, she is leaning towards alcohol and using that to dull, the pain of the trauma that she had gone through. However, she is still highly functioning and she can do her job very well also. But it's just, she is a very flawed character with that. But I think that we like her all the more because of it. And she just is very believable in that role for sure. And I think that Laurie is one of my favorite final girls of all time, but I don't think that she does her best performance until this film. I think that she was more just on defense in the first and second films. And by this film, she wants to take things into her own hands a lot more. So what I really love about this performance, other than, it just being very believable with all the trauma aspects, would be when she finally decides that she is not going to run anymore and she's going to face her fate. So she sends the kids on and she goes out after Michael. She gets that axe and then she shouts out Michael, and then we get those amazing musical cues, and that just gives me chills every time I watch this film. I really love that. And then I love when she takes the coroner van, I believe it was, and she decides that she's finally going to end Michael. And you know what? I don't care that it's not him under the mask, technically, because when I'm watching H2O, I just believe that it is Michael. It felt like it was Michael, and it always will be to me. And that is such an iconic moment when she finally ends it. That is the best end to this story and these characters, for sure. So this is going to be, my favorite performance from her for this entire franchise. The next one that I want to talk about is James McAvoy in Split. So Split is a sequel to the movie Unbreakable. However, I did not know that going into it. And you don't really get to see anything in regard to that until the very end of the film anyways. But in it, we do focus on our character Kevin, who has a very bad case of DID, and he is dealing with it the best he can for the most part, but he doesn't do it in the most healthy of ways, and he ends up kidnapping multiple young girls. So this film just hinges on the performance of the actor that they cast as Kevin. And James McAvoy was the perfect choice for this role. I think that it is a really hard thing to accomplish with the DID being so bad for this character. He has over 20 different personalities that he is jumping back and forth between throughout the course of the film. And I think that he does so very seamlessly, which is really awesome considering how vastly different some of the characters are to one another. And I just think that this performance specifically is going to go down in history as one of the best ones that we've seen in more modern times. The next one that I want to talk about is Mia Goth in Pearl. So Pearl is a prequel to the movie X, and in it we do follow our main character of Pearl, who is stuck on a farm and she just absolutely wants to be a star. So she wants to try to act and dance and do everything she can to get out of that rut of a life that she lives. And I think that Mia Goth is an actress that I had seen in lots of different movies prior to this, and she always did a good job, but she didn't really become a household name until this X trilogy came out. And I'm glad that she is finally getting her due as far as her acting performances go, because she did such an incredible job in Pearl specifically. I really prefer X out of the three films very much, but I think that Pearl is just so good as far as the story goes. It's really a character study on Pearl in general. And I think that her monologue is just unbelievable. It's so, so good. It lasts for a really long time, and it's just the best thing that I have ever seen Mia Goth do. And I think that she definitely deserves some praise for that one. The next one that I want to talk about is Robert Englund from A Nightmare on Elm Street. And again, with this one, it is going to be more talking about his turn throughout this entire franchise. So, Robert Englund plays Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street, and he is a villain that attacks teenagers in their sleep. And I think that that's just so scary in itself that you can't even go to sleep and, you know, not be scared and stuff. That's terrifying for sure. But Robert Englund is easily one of the most iconic actors in a villainous role of all time. I think that he is the one of the main three slasher villains that is the most has the most personality, I'll say. I mean, I personally definitely prefer Michael and Jason because I like the strong silent type for my villains, but he just has so much personality in this role as Freddy, and that is something that we will always look fondly at, even if you're like me and you prefer to have the, you know, more silent villains and stuff. But I think that he does really good in all aspects of this role. He is much more terrifying in, I would say, the first two of the films, for sure. He does that stuff very well, but he also does all the goofy one-liners and quips and stuff like that that we get in like the later sequels very well also. I think some of those one-liners are just so iconic and hilarious. So I really like all aspects of this role that he does. And I think that they are really going to be hard pressed to move forward with this franchise without him. I mean, I really liked Jackie Earle Haley's performance as Freddy Krueger in the remake. However, obviously that movie had massive problems. I don't think it was him. I don't think he was the problem there. But I think just long term, this is going to be a role that they have a very hard time filling by anyone else other than Robert. The next one that I want to talk about is Demi Moore and The Substance. So The Substance is about an aging actress who has just gotten let go from the position she's been in for ages because of the fact that she is getting older and they want someone younger in that role. And she happens on to an experimental drug that she could take called The Substance, which kind of splits her sentience between her current self and a younger, better version of herself. And she has to follow some major rules in order to have the substance work for her properly. And she kind of realizes that no matter which form of herself that she is in, it is going to affect the opposite one when she does something that she shouldn't in either of those bodies, basically. And Demi Moore has been a household name for decades now, and I think that it's perfect to put her in this role because she hasn't really gotten the credit that she deserves as an actress. So it works very well. And I think that throughout the course of The Substance, she gets an opportunity to play so differently than she really has in other roles before. She ends up looking extremely old, like a hag, and she just leans into that performance and isn't afraid to go there with it and, you know, be gross and do all that stuff. And I think that's really awesome. It's just a very different role for her for sure, but I really love what she brought to it for sure. And it's sad that she didn't win for her performance, and it ended up going to a young ingenue instead. But that's obviously very fitting with the theme of the substance as well. The next one that I want to talk about is Neve Campbell in Scream. And this one, again, is really throughout the whole franchise that she gets to be a part of. So in Scream, we do have our main character, Sidney Prescott, who lost her mother a year before the events of the film. And now there are new murders happening, and they do believe that they might be linked to her high school. So I think that Sidney Prescott is definitely my favorite final girl of all time. Spoiler for whenever I do that video, I guess. But the thing about her is that she was fantastic from the first film on. And, you know, like Laurie Strode, where I do really like her and stuff, she was more on the defense, like I said, in those first two films, where she would just only go up against Michael when she had to, you know, maybe stab him once and then try to get away or just think that he's dead immediately. But that's not the case ever. And with Sidney, she is going on the offense already in that first film. And I really like that. And part of it is definitely Kevin Williamson's writing. I think that just the fact that this movie came out in 1996, you know, he was able to write that character with all of these incredible final girls in mind. And he was able to make her the best that he could. So she does have that going for her as well. But I think that Sidney is just such a sweet and mild character throughout the films. However, she definitely has no problem taking down Ghostface when she needs to, and she will finish the job. And I love that about her. The last one that I want to talk about is another Scream character, and that is Matthew Lillard as Schumacher in Scream. So I wanted to bring this one up due to all of the Tarantino comments that we had gotten not too long ago, just where he was saying that he didn't think that Matthew was a good actor. And I think that that couldn't be farther from the truth. So when it comes to Scream 7, I think that everyone is very excited about Neve Campbell coming back. But what name did they drop that got everyone the most excited? Matthew Lillard. Absolutely. Because this is something that fans have been wanting for years. It was told to us that Matthew Lillard was going to come back as Schumacher, alive and well, in Scream 3. However, they had to go through massive rewrites due to some tragedies that were going on in the real world at that time. So it didn't come to pass. But obviously, it was canon that he was still alive. So there was definitely the opportunity for him to come back at some point. And I think that ever since anyone heard about that, that's all that anyone's been talking about. Is when are they going to bring Stu back? Is he going to be one of the killers? And I think that that is really awesome because obviously we only got to have him in that first film. And it just speaks to how good of a performance he did in that role. I never gravitated much toward Billy Loomis. I just didn't like him as well. I know my mom always liked him so much, but I just thought that Skeet was just like so kind of greasy and gross looking in that movie. I think that he is gorgeous now that he is getting older, for sure. But I just didn't gravitate toward Billy nearly as much. I thought that Stu was, you know, more goofy and over the top and just a joy to watch on screen. And that's really because of Matthew Lillard's performance in that role. I love what he brings to it. And I think that most people do as well. But I think that it is really awesome that, you know, one single performance in this franchise has stayed with us for so long and has made us want to see him again. And I know that everyone is kind of talking about the chance that all the people that they are bringing back could just be AI. And, you know, we have like Scott Foley coming back and we have David Arquette coming back. And obviously those two characters are for sure dead. But I'm hoping maybe that they will just be AI, but when we have Stu, he is actually alive and in the flesh, considering that that is actually able to happen in here. That is what I'm hoping for, because I want to see him go take on Sydney one more time. He can die at that point. That's okay. But I really hope that he is alive for this movie. Um, I can't wait to see him back in this, even if he is just AI. It is just such an iconic performance from him. And I just have to say, I don't give a shit what Tarantino says. If it comes down to it, I would choose to watch Scream or any other Matthew Lillard movie long before I would watch any Tarantino film. They're fine, but they're just really long and overrated overall. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you agree with my choices, or would you have put other performances in their places? Let me know all that down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel, as well as additional horror content. You can also follow me on Letterboxd to see what I have been watching lately and my brief thoughts on any of those films. And if you want either of those, they are linked in my channel description for easy access for you guys. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting me so far. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.